Welcome back to DSP Leaders World Forum. It's Monday, the 11th of May, and coming up now is our final session of the day, Edgenomics, making a viable business case for edge computing. Before we start though, a quick reminder that if you want to ask questions later or join the Extra Shot with Ray LeMaitre programs, then get in touch with us as soon as possible. Details here on Telecom TV, along with our latest poll question. And so, moving on to our panel, Edgenomics, making a viable business case for edge computing. The network edge continues to be a somewhat elusive prize, full of promise and potential, but the all-important prime use cases are yet to fully emerge. So how do network operators avoid the risk of the build it and they will come approach when they still don't know who exactly would be the main customers of edge services and when this will happen? But surely a greater risk is to sit back and wait until the use cases become clear, allowing competitors to strike first. We need to delve into the economics of the edge and to work out a viable business case for deployment today. And hopefully our guests will help us to do just that. And I'm delighted to introduce Andrea Calvi, who is Chief Innovation and Partnership Office at TIM, Beth Cohen, SDN Product Strategist at Verizon, Gino Grano, Managing Senior Director, North America Service Provider Region at Red Hat, and Sergio Gonzalez, Lead Cloud Architect at Microsoft. Hello everybody, thank you so much for joining us on Telecom TV.
Hello.
Hello, guys.
Now, we're calling this Edgenomics. It's a way for us to focus the debate away from the technology and the perennial where is the edge question, and instead, look at the business case for edge and the justification for our investment. I'd like to ask the first question to all of you, and Beth, I'll start with you if I may. Why do you think there is the need and commercial opportunity for service providers to deploy and develop new edge strategies?
Well, it's essential for service providers because edge, part and parcel of edge is the network, right? Without the network, edge is nothing. And so it's important for the service providers to make sure that the edge has a viable platform to run on. So it's key to our strategy today.
Andrea, what about Telecom Italia? Why do you think there is this need and commercial opportunity for edge?
We strongly believe in edge computing. We believe there is a real commercial opportunity simply because nowadays we see application and contents moving year to year towards more demanding configuration. So we need more bandwidth, we need bigger size, we need faster time response. And from an engineering point of view, there is no better configuration, there is not better way to serve this kind of application than with an edge computing configuration. What I mean is, this is the most efficient. You can try to do it in different ways, but when you look at the ratio between the quality provided and the cost, this is the best possible configuration. So thinking at video gaming, virtual reality, augmented reality, robotics, video event, everything which is really demanding. From an engineering point of view, I see no better configuration than edge computing.
I'd like to add to that what's so key is that as network intelligence becomes more prevalent, it's really a integration between the applications and the network, and that has become so much more important for the success of edge computing. The co-location of the applications with the networking components is what really makes it a success. And obviously an economic opportunity for both the service providers and the other edge vendors in the ecosystem.
Great. Gino, can I ask what are your telco customers? What are you hearing from your telco customers about the need for them to deploy commercial edge services?
When we talk to our customers, what we're seeing a consistent theme, right? And the consistent theme is all centered around velocity, right? They're all looking to get new services out quicker and faster to market. There's an increased need for digital transformation within our customer base, regardless of what vertical they're in. One thing that this pandemic has brought to light to us is every customer that we talk to, regardless of industry, are increasing the pace at which they're digitally transforming themselves, right? They want to move faster. They want to improve the customer experiences, and edge is seen as the key to be able to execute quickly. And
Sergio, you're looking at this from a slightly different perspective at Microsoft, but you're seeing what the industry as a whole is doing. I'd like to ask you about the justification of commercial opportunity for edge deployment, and also link this in to the question about should communication service providers go it alone, or should they look to partner?
So, well, I more than agree with what has been said here. I mean, we see the enterprises, industries going beyond in digital transformation. It was a wish before this crisis, but now we might even talk about digital survival. Is digital transformation or nothing? And we see more and more use cases as the digital transformation matures in industries requiring edge capabilities. So hyperscalers will be in position to bring a very powerful set of workloads and use cases that require enhanced networks, so next generation networks. So I think there is a very interesting joint opportunity for both service providers and large enterprises in forming common alliances. And I think that message is also of interest for both the telecom industry and large enterprises for transforming.
And the vendor community as well.
Exactly, of course. Yeah, I see when we talk about edge, we're talking about building something new, some new space of creation and capabilities, and that requires synergies and complementary approaches, partnerships, and everyone should work together in creating the best possible workloads for our customers.
Andrea, can I pick up on this collaboration theme? Because the physical undertakings of getting a comprehensive edge network out there are huge. Is partnership and collaboration the way to go?
Yeah, definitely. If you ask me, I'm really looking for a cooperation scenario. The way I see edge computing for architecture technically is having what I call a telco edge node with the access capability, the radio access, and direct connection to the customer, and service edge node with the service logic. And the two must be directly connected together. This means that telcos and cloud service providers are forced to cooperate directly and find an agreement, cooperation or co-petition, as you prefer. And this is the most efficient configuration, simply because if you try to do it in a different way, you will end up with having maybe a third party in the communication between the two. You will not be directly plugged into the place where the access network ends and the first IP interface is offered. So you will not end up with a configuration that allows you to be in full control of the end-to-end quality of service. This is why I really believe in a cooperation scenario, and cooperating means creating a bigger market, and so creating rooms for a fair share of revenues between the two actors, telcos and cloud service providers.
Gino, it's a complex equation, this, is that there's a lot of elements. There's the CSPs, there's the hyperscalers, the cloud companies. Where does you fit? Where do you fit as a vendor with a lot of expertise in the enterprise sector as well? How can you assist?
From our perspective, what we want to be able to help enable, right, all facets and all aspects of the ecosystem, right? So our role is to work with our service providers and help enable the edge and ensure that they have that scalable, low latency, reliable infrastructure at the edge. At the same time, we're working with the hyperscalers to be able to take all the features and functionalities that they have and they do well, and how do you enable that with the telco at the edge, right? So that we can, enable this ecosystem and have it go further and really be able to get applications to the end customers faster.
Sergio, how do we overcome the perception that rather than collaboration, there's a potential threat here? There's competition, because I guess we want to see this as an opportunity for the telcos rather than a threat to their business.
Well, certainly there might be that perception. I mean, this is a very, century-old industry. But the reality is that what I see here, for example, in Spain, is that large operators and ourselves, we are approaching the same enterprise customers. So there is strong synergies because at the end, we see, for example, here in Spain is a country with a very good access network. We have broadband, we have 4G everywhere. We are able to do much more innovative use cases as in other countries. You might have 3G or copper. So the better the network, the more disruptive are the hyperscale use cases we can deliver. And we are seeing very strong joint partnerships in working together with telcos. But this is something, I guess, the beginning. It has to expand, especially when we go to next generation networks. So there is a fabulous joint opportunity ahead with what other panelists have been saying. From Microsoft, we have a joint approach with the telcos in order to integrate our capabilities with their network assets and being able to deliver this high quality end-to-end experience. So at the end, hyperscalers are good in bringing AI, big data, enhanced analytics, software capabilities, and telco operators are good at building the best quality networks in every district, in every home. So I mean that can only mean synergies. So we have to enhance our existing partnership and alliances and develop where they are not present. So the win-win is obvious.
And Beth, we heard at the end of last year, didn't we, about these synergies from Verizon?
Yes, that's correct. So let me jump in on there. So of course we announced the partnership with Amazon with Wavelength, which was the first of many that will be coming. It's not exclusive, and what's really important is that the synergy is absolutely there. I totally agree with Sergio, and the synergy, because we're not even competing in terms of the platform. We don't particularly have cloud platforms in that sense, for application development, and and the cloud providers don't have that ubiquitous network. And where the real synergies will come is in the intelligent networking, and that's coming. That's starting. That's definitely emerging technology at this point, but I see that as a real growth area over the next few years, as applications become more sophisticated, and as those edge applications are distributed over the network, be it in the core at the CSPs and out to the edge. You really need to use the intelligent networking to make sure that the workloads are in the right locations.
Andrea, can I move on to look at some of the possible new business models that might arise with this? For instance, wholesale. Is there a new wholesale opportunity there once you've got your compute and storage assets deployed?
Yes, definitely. Definitely, there is a wholesale opportunity. If if you accept the sort of definition of edge computing I gave a few minutes ago, so having a telco edge node and a services edge node, and if you think about this, this is already a wholesale configuration. Of course, as it has been touched by the colleagues in this panel, there will be some sort of mixed business model in which the telco will play the role of cloud service provider itself, as an example, towards its own business customer in a specific region. But the best amount of value will be created in a situation where we have a telco capability open at the edge towards third party, creating big ecosystems and having companies focusing on service only without the burden of taking care of radio access technology, quality of service in the access, etc., etc., etc. And this is definitely a wholesale scenario.
Gino, are you hearing from your customers more about these alternate models and looking not just at retail but at wholesale as well?
It's there are discussions that we're having with all of our customers. The wholesale model is something that many of the service providers are used to. They've been doing it for years, right? It's a great way to monetize spare capacity on their infrastructure. When we're talking about the edge, the conversations in wholesale really come out as you think about the consumers of that edge services. It's going to be very verticalized in nature. You're going to be targeting very specific things. Not all service provider can have that deep and intimate customer relationship with every vertical, right? So there's an opportunity to partner with some of those niche players and partner with some of the ecosystem and application providers to really target those. So in that case, they're really looking at wholesale in order to help facilitate and make that happen.
Beth, when we look at these different models and these potential different business models, does that affect the network itself and how you architect to support these models, some of which we're probably not too sure of yet?
Yes, it does, certainly. We're working on building capacity to support a whole community that we've never really focused on, which is the developer community, because edge applications is still definitely emerging. There's applications, setting aside the gaming and the IoT, which is kind of obvious. There's plenty of other applications that we haven't even thought about yet, and we really need to engage the developer community in a whole new way to get them to understand how the network can support them. I mean, this is a community that doesn't typically know much about networking and doesn't pay much attention to it, but these edge applications really require some capability of consuming the network in a way that enhances the application. So we are working on developing some tools to help the developer community to consume the network in a more efficient way. So that's pretty exciting work.
Sergio, you want to pick up on what Beth has just said?
Yes, exactly. So the most disruptive transformation that I see is evolving networks to platforms. So when you talk about platforms, you talk about a new different domain, a new different space. What Beth said on developer communities, I think is key. Somehow when you enhance, when you empower a community, you might see new use cases that might end up out of your control. So you are creating actors in that ecosystem that might end up using your capabilities with you having a direct relationship with them. But at the end, they use your platform, so you benefit from that. So, we might end up seeing creating ecosystems of partners that serve other partners, and that's an amazing transformation. And so that might also change the kind of relationship we might have with this customer ecosystem, but enhancing and creating those APIs, those software-driven networks is key for those new models to arise.
So, Gino, it looks like we're looking at platforms, looking at whole new ecosystems, perhaps.
Indeed, the ecosystems, there's ecosystems that don't exist yet that will become vital and critical as we move forward, right? The beauty of what this is going to enable is it truly will be transformational for companies, right? They will be re-architecting their businesses. There'll be a level of dynamicness at the edge, and that platform that everyone's been talking about. We really view it as a cloud native platform, something that will be able to be quickly changed and adjusted to really follow what the customer is needing and really respond to what the market dynamics are, right? So, in our view, we see a very cloud native container based edge, highly automated, very real time, and needing to be able to scale at will.
But the network component it's key. The network component has to be fully integrated into all of those platforms to make that all work and make that be successful.
Thanks. And Sergio?
Yeah, I would add that in certain conversations with different customers in the logistics, oil and gas, retail space, we see that in their business processes they have a lot of disconnected spots in the process chain. They might have blind areas in their process. So having a connected end-to-end process is key for new digital transformation scenarios to happen. Logistics companies that they don't know where certain asset is at a given moment in time. Industry scenarios in which you might not know the output of a given sensor because it's disconnected. So end-to-end connectivity of everything would create connected processes and connected industry. So that's essential for scenarios to happen.
Well, let me bring in Andrea, because one of the themes that we've been hearing all week is the need for speed, the need to implement fast so we can react fast and ultimately offer services fast. We've been talking about this as an industry for quite some time, this dynamic agile network. But I guess this is something that is also very applicable to edge deployments, and adopting a cloud native approach could well be the answer.
Yeah, sure. All the discussion is about hybridization and contamination of the telco business, telco technology with the cloud business. We have very much to learn from each other. I mean, companies having run telco business for many years and company champions in the cloud business, and we have been stressing very much the fact that cooperation, integration, competition is needed. Of course, cloud technologies can help also very much the modernization of the telco business. So, as it was mentioned right now by Red Hat, the transformation into a cloud native infrastructure, the transformation of the telco infrastructure into a cloud native will help very much to achieve better total cost of ownership, better agility, and very important point is also the proximity, the closeness of technology between telco with the cloud transformation of telco network and the cloud provider, the hyperscale cloud provider, will help very much this integration. We will start soon talking the same language, using the same technology, and using the same protocols and APIs. So this will help very much the integration. And as you correctly mentioned, this will help very much telcos to have a faster network, more agile network, and to help modernizing and refreshing the network with the same quick life cycle as cloud providers are doing today.
And Beth, talking the same language is something that we've been working on for quite some time between the industries. And I know you're heavily involved in this as well. But are we getting there?
We are getting there. We are getting there. The telcos are definitely getting the agile message and the container message and the cloud platform, and of course the software-defined networking message. Does it happen overnight? No, but I've been in it long enough to see that we're moving a whole lot faster than we have ever moved before. And I think we're being pushed by the ecosystem of the cloud, the cloud service providers, the developer community that are all running at hyperspeed, and as we bring on our new technologies, 5G for example, we need to do it at hyperspeed. We need to do it at the same speed as our the rest of the ecosystem, and the good news is I think we are.
Can I move on to looking at the economics of all this, because there's a huge investment at play here. Gino, do we have any idea yet of like commercial payback times? Do we have any sense of total cost of ownership? Have you got any data yet at all on what the impact may well be on service providers?
Guy, I think that's the magic question that the industry is all searching for, right? And I wish I had a definitive answer. I think the traditional business case metrics and paybacks and internal rates of returns that the industry has grown up with and used to justify will apply, but it's not just about that. We need to look at this as this is an opportunity to invest in edge, right? The business cases will come. Whether it's in verticals with self-driving cars, whether it's utilities-based, resource-based, many of these applications that are going to drive new revenue streams for the service providers will come. It is difficult to really understand what that is today. But in the meantime, what we're seeing a lot of our service providers doing is, how do they leverage the edge to do things efficiently for themselves, where they can take cost out of the business, right? And we're seeing a lot of folks pushing things like fleet management and pushing their technician applications closer to the customers, allowing them to improve their support models, reduce their cost of truck rolls, and really improve that customer experience as that first step to be able to justify that business case and that build out of the edge.
So there's an internal OpEx-based business case as well as a customer-facing business case.
That's what we're seeing today, yes.
Anybody else seeing the financial arguments become any clearer, Beth?
Well, I'm not sure the financial arguments are clear, but I could certainly see that the arguments for the edge, and you mentioned the truck rolls and other fleet management, and we were able to use much of this directly in response to the pandemic. We've implemented huge changes in our customer service for contactless customer service, and we were able to do it very quickly because we had many of these agile edge solutions already in place for internal use. So, for example, we now our service, our technicians right now are not going back to the garage. They're taking their trucks back to their office, back to their homes, and only going out as necessary. That was only able to be done because we had these mechanisms in place already.
Andrea, is it too early to really look at the in-depth economic arguments for edge? Are we still more focused on justifying the business cases of edge?
Of course, the discussion on the business for edge computing is complicated and still a bit vague in this moment. But I think the best way to approach this is not looking at the single business case for a single service, for a single vertical, for a single revenue stream. What we have to keep in mind is edge computing is simply the next, let's say, wave of cloud services and cloud computing. So it is the natural evolution of it. If we think about all the verticals we have been discussing about during last year, they all fit the category of hybrid cloud services. And talking with all the experts, we all agree that edge computing will be the natural evolution of cloud computing as it is today. When I think about economics, I'm quite, let's say, optimistic about the economics of edge computing. First of all, if you look at the investment from a telco perspective, the investment, of course, are needed, but they're largely incremental investments, meaning that you can increase the capacity and also your presence on the field with edge nodes as soon as the business starts to fly. So you can treat it partially as a pay-as-you-grow kind of business. And when I think about the business case, in this moment where the edge computing business still needs to take off seriously, and most probably it will take off seriously when the hyperscale cloud providers jump in by bringing a big ecosystem, big investment, etc. At that moment, I'm sure that the payback of investment will happen quite in a short time. In this moment, you have use more your intuition than the business plan on a single service.
Sergio, do you have any thoughts about the economics of the edge, and can we map the cloud model against the edge model?
Yeah, of course. For Microsoft, we really see the edge as a natural extension of the cloud. We talk about the intelligent edge within the intelligent cloud conversation. So the extension, it's obvious, especially for certain use cases. I would like to add that I might be certain that in 5 years from now, we will be talking about use cases we didn't imagine before. I mean, new capabilities might happen that might create new use cases that were not expected at this time. I guess telco industry never thought 20 years ago that SMS was going to be a key revenue stream. So you have to let the event surprise you. But I think agility, driven by software define everything, is key in helping us move through this uncharted spaces. We have to react fast in order not to miss that point opportunity that might happen at a given moment in time. So really being agile, being fast is key when we talk about use cases that do not exist now and that might not even be expected in the future.
Great. I'd like to ask a final question to all of you, and that is, to share with us what you've learned so far. What have we as an industry learned so far? Gino, if I could start with you, what lessons from the early analysis of business cases and use cases for Edge, what lessons have we learned that we could share with other service providers?
It's an interesting question, Guy, just because we're really at the beginning part of this transition and this development of this new marketplace. There have been some early lessons that we are seeing, right? You want to build an edge environment that is scalable, right? You want to build an edge environment that is real time. Time is key here, right? Right. You need to execute things quickly, right? This market will not wait, right? We really hope that there was that killer business case that could justify it, but things will move quickly, right? And this will be initially a vertically focused type of marketplace, right? So pick a vertical, find where your deep relationships are, go and partner with those individuals, and jointly build those applications that are going to change and add value to your customers, right? And to Beth's point earlier, this is not something that can be done on its own. This really is an extension of a network. If we're going to make this successful, you have to do it as you're evolving your network and making it more software defined. Otherwise, there'll be no way that you can scale with it and grow for the customer needs in a cost-effective way.
Thanks. And Beth, any early lessons that are apparent so far?
Oh yes. So as you probably are aware, Verizon's been at this for a while, and I would say test, performance testing, integration testing, operational. You draw it, it makes enormous changes in how you operate these networks. Um, those are all lessons that we learned painfully um, in making these systems work. So pay attention to the details.
And have you got any lessons that you can share with us as well, Sergio?
Yeah, so I would like to complement on what Beth said. Integrating your NFB networks, software-defined networks with more IT kind of capabilities is key. And also looking beyond a technology partnership between the telcos, hyperscale software plus networks. If you want to disrupt a specific industry, you also need a vertical business partner that really understand the complexities, the regulations, the business models of those specific industries in order to create a very interesting value proposition. So when you talk about disrupting, I don't know, oil and gas and retail, you really need to know that industry. So you have to also have a more business complement that allows you to define the proper set of capabilities for the use cases of that given industry. So it's about partnership of all kind again.
And Andrea, any final observations from you?
Yes, a couple of final considerations. The first one is, I think Telecom Italia is doing since some year, are all, let's say, getting more and more familiar with cloud technologies, and we're studying and trying to see the best way to adopt cloud native technology for ourselves to improve our competitiveness, our technology network. I think cloud providers are doing the same and trying to get familiar with the telco technology and the telco world. And I can say both worlds are really fascinating, very complex. And once again, it will be difficult for one of the two actors to become the champion in the other field. So once again, the way out in order to make edge computing a success story, a good, let's say, success story for improving the market, creating value, is cooperation. Another important remark is nowadays there are quite a lot of partnership between cloud providers and telcos already starting. In our case, we just made an agreement in March with Google Cloud. There is for sure a next step in this story. There will be a next step in which some level of standardization will be needed. I'm not here speaking about the full standardization that takes 10 years. It will be not fast enough, but we need to find a sort of agreement in order to have all telcos to agree on some APIs, programming interface to expose to third parties and to cloud providers. GSMA is working on it, and this is extremely important because out of this, we will create a platform which works smooth and seamless everywhere across different countries, across different operators, and we'll be able to attract the community of developers worldwide. I think this is an important step.
Well, we'll be continuing our watch of Edgenomics and charting the progress of the Edge over the coming months. But for now, everyone, thank you very much indeed for joining us on the programme. If you have any questions for our guests or any additional comments or views you wish to add, then please do get in touch with us. And if you want to be part of the ongoing conversation, then you really need to join us on our brand new discussion programme, Extra Shot, with Telecom TV's editorial director, Ray Lemaitre. Get in touch with us now through social media or email. Otherwise, please take a look at the sessions that we've already held. They're all available for on-demand viewing now here on Telecom TV, and we'll be adding future videos to the archive throughout the week. Coming up next though on DSP Leaders World Forum 2020 is our session on expanding and coordinating the open telecoms ecosystem. And you'll be able to watch that tomorrow from 8 AM UK time. But for now, a final thank you to our panelists and to you for watching. Goodbye.